Okay, I just started recording. Cool. So today we are going to discuss the same motion. This house prefers joint families over nuclear families for children's development in the Indian society. But what we're going to do differently is what I just told you about how writing an article, writing an essay is very different from how you write a speech for yourself because there's time constraint. And so you might be like brimming with excellent ideas, but until and unless you know of a way in which you can uh, effectively summarize all of those points and at the same time help the adjudicator make sense of it, that's when the speech becomes more intricate and more complex in its structure. So how this essay or whatever your regular random thoughts are on a topic are different from a speech is that your random thoughts might not be structured, and because of this lack of structure there might even be a lot of problems and contradictions in your own case that you're not able to put a finger on. But when you start structuring things, it's easier for you to find faults with your case, but also it's easier for you to deliver your point of view more efficiently because now you know what will follow after what. Do you understand? So I am going to, okay, so when I ask you, do you understand? Because this is one thing that I keep asking a lot of the times. I need you all to give me a thumbs up because I'm looking for responses when I ask you a question. So just give me a thumbs up in order for me to know that all of us are on the same page. Yes, exactly like how Kavya did it and Anaga and everybody else. Okay. Yugveer, you have a question though. So for question, you raise the hand like Yugveer has. And if you want to confirm that you've understood things, you give me a thumbs up. That's like the rule we're going to follow. Okay, Yugveer, question.
Ma'am, actually, ma'am, I was I'm in a mall now. So actually, I did not hear what you said. So like you said that we are going to edit some mistakes that are in our speech.
Yeah. No.
Okay,
So
ma'am.
what you wrote yesterday was not a speech, is what I was trying to hint at. So the idea was this. You first come up with thoughts. Now that everybody has written about that particular topic, everybody has some basic ideas and thoughts on the motion. Is that right? Nobody is without ideas, right? Because everybody did that exercise yesterday. Now all of us have the ideas. It's only about how we want to make a speech out of it. So today is more about the construction of a speech, because the construction of a speech is extremely important for the reasons that I've already analyzed for you. So in the wake of that clarification, I think we can now move on to the work that we have allotted us, like set for ourselves today. The thing about today's session though is that it has to be an interactive session, which means it's not just me telling you things and you absorbing and then waiting for a time when you'll be able to implement and execute it. It's the other way around. As in, when I tell you things, I need you all to be responsive. When I ask you if you understand, you not need to give me a thumbs up immediately after that if you do. And if you don't, just unmute and say, ma'am, I don't understand what you're saying right now, can you please repeat? And I will. Okay, so beginning today's session on that note, I think speaker role fulfillment is pretty self-explanatory, as in a lot of you will understand what speaker role fulfillment means. But for those of you who are confused on whichever aspect of it, speaker role fulfillment is just basically how to deliver speeches from a particular side. So if you are the government side or the for the member, like for from if you're speaking from for the motion side, it's also the government side, and it's easier to call it the government side, so please remember that. And this is against the motion. So how are you supposed to deliver those speeches then, right? If you are from either of these sides, that's what we're going to discuss today. So can you all, so this house prefers joint families, right? Yeah, okay. So can three people who I'm going to select give me their views on this motion from for side, like from the government side? Three people who are going to raise their hands. Okay, Shuchishmita, Anaga, Yugveer. If Yugveer, I think your hand has been raised. Ishan, okay, Ishan. I don't know if Yugveer's hand has been raised, is raised from the last time, or if he did.
Ma'am, no. Ma'am, actually, when I had the question, I raised my hand. And when you told me that for the debate, I lowered my hand, then I raised my hand.
Okay, let's put it this way. Ishan will go first, then Anaga, then Yugveer, then Shuchishmita.
Ma'am, for the motion or against?
For only for right now.
Okay, ma'am.
And other people who I'm not taking the responses from verbally, please put your for the motion argument in the chat. Let's do it that way. Okay, Ishan, what is your argument like from for the motion?
Can you please give me 10 seconds?
10 seconds? Okay, we will come back to you in that case. Anaga, what is your argument?
Start. She's asking for my argument is yes, I strongly agree that joint families are better and is a blessing for children development. Family plays an important role in child's development. In a joint family, the child is never alone. If parents are busy and are not available, then our grandparents, uncles, and aunts are there as our companions. One can never be sad because of the presence of a big fat family. Living in a joint family indicates basic moral values of respect, love, compassion, and affection for our elders and young ones. Joint family helps in raising socially stable and successful children. Joint families help in inculcating the virtues of sharing and giving, which are very important for the child's overall growth. Joint families provide an extended hand in sharing the responsibilities of the child, such as picking and dropping them from schools, helping with the homework, taking them to the extracurricular activities, etc., and providing them with a safe environment. In my opinion, joint families are much better, and if possible, we should gift our children the love, affection, safety, and unity and feeling of oneness to them in the form of joint family. Thank you.
Okay, lovely, Ishan. I think those were some really nice points raised in a very short period of time. This is how I would like everybody to respond. So he took very little time to say a lot, which is a very nice thing for a debater to have as a skill. So you say a lot in a very short frame of time. Excellent work, I think. But
Thank you, ma'am.
you're welcome. I think a lot of the points have already been made in terms of how the child is not alone, and if the child, so the child doesn't have mental health issues because nobody talks to them, etc., etc. But also that parents are not pressurized, which means that parents are not always under the burden or even guilty about not giving time to their children. I think that's another argument that Ishan hints at. And then about a safe environment, as to how if a child is alone, there's a lot of, I mean, you could say that there's a lot of influence in their lives, right? There could be peer pressure, there could be toxic competition at school, there could be bad days where you're not doing well at the exams but also not having a lot of friends to talk to. So at that point, a joint family might really help, given that parents are also working more often than not these days. And then the oneness, of course, I mean, unity always helps more insofar as teams achieve better than an individual can. I think all of those arguments make absolutely, I mean, all the sense in the world. But are there any other arguments that you guys might have which are not the same as Ishan's? Anaga?
Yes, ma'am. This house prefers joint families over nuclear families as it benefits the child. This is because it teaches the child the art of sharing everything they have with all members of the family. This makes you a very likable person since you give everything you have to others. You learn to put we before yourself. And you will never be alone if you have a joint family. There will always be someone to have your back, support you. They'll always be there to hold you through your struggles and sadness. And in education, your elder sisters, siblings, and family will be able to help you because you have a lot more family members to help teach you, spread a lot of knowledge to you, and a lot of books will be passed down to you from your elder sisters and brothers. So you will be able to learn a lot more through them. And your parents will not have any tension as to whether the child is sick. There'll always be someone to look after them and care for them. And the love and care you give and get will always be limitless.
Okay, all right. So I think again, a lot of the points are the same as what Ishan said, but better explanation, which is nice. So you should also know how to extend on the points that have already been mentioned. Good. But other than that, I think everybody else can lower their hands because I think we have a lot of arguments from for the motion, and a lot of us will be repeating the same points from now on. So let me make the point about how to structure these arguments. If these were, I mean, I will give you a chance to speak in the future, like if I have some other question, but lower your hands for now. Everybody? Thank you. Thank you. All right. So now, if you look at it, we have a lot of arguments, right? And like I said, you can't just give more importance to one argument. For example, Ishan talks about a lot of arguments, but what if he gave only one argument instead of a lot of arguments? What would happen in that case? Can anybody answer? Like, why are more arguments better than just one argument?
Ma'am, a boring speech.
A boring speech, sure, yeah, okay.
Ma'am, it is people will not have interest.
People will lose interest. Okay, like apart from boring, like apart from the excitement that a speech generates, apart
Ma'am,
from
like,
that,
ma'am,
how do
like
you
in a
think?
debate,
Okay, let me explain the complete the question. How do you think it determines your win or loss?
Ma'am, the chances of losing will become more.
Yeah, but how?
And you'll be able to defeat your opponent with your arguments.
Okay, sure. Okay, this is a nice perspective to have. So maybe what Anaga is hinting towards is that if you have a lot of arguments, then you also have a lot of material to rebut your opponent with, which is a nice argument. Because if I know a lot of dimensions of my case, it is easy for me to find one dimension that will help me rebut the other side. Does that make sense?
I feel that we should have
Yes.
one really strong argument and we can elaborate on that so that there are not many POIs and the opponents don't get confused.
Okay, fair point made. I think a lot of people say this, okay, and I am not against this either. So quality always reigns and wins over quality. That's no question. Like there's no question about it. But what am I trying to say then? I think in a 3 minute long speech, the the likelihood of okay, you could use one argument and you can explain it thoroughly, and then you will have less POIs, and because you have been able to explain one argument so easily, maybe it will win you the case, maybe it will. But what is even better is for you to learn how to say a lot in fewer words. So if you are able to do that, I think any argument can be explained in 1 minute thoroughly, as much as you would want to. Do you understand? That's why in conventional speeches, conventional meaning 3 minute long speeches which are prepared beforehand, you have at least three arguments. So that, because 1 minute is enough for you to explain the argument if you have structured it well. So everything boils down to the structure. Sometimes I am making, see, I mean, a point as simple as the one that Ishan made about child being alone. I think I can extend this argument so much, right? I can say, panel, we think children oftentimes feel alone because the type of world that we live in today is more about competition, is more about doing better than the other person, which means the feelings of like and sentiments of friendliness and togetherness are slowly going away. In this type of a world, in this kind of a world, it's difficult for you to find friends who will not always be very competitive towards you, right? And okay, families are supportive and families can help, but then again, a lot of the family members are also working, which means if you are only living in nuclear families, then if your parents are not around, you're probably coming back to an empty home, which no child wants, given that there's so much pressure at school even to do well, and sometimes you can't do well, right? Sometimes they're always bound to be bad rainy days. So in that case, a joint family really helps, because this is an immediate circle which will not compete with you because you come from the same family, or at least compete less. You compete less with your cousins, etc., because you are given the same family values, but you compete more with the people outside because the people outside do not come from the same family, like same kind of value system that you do, right? So this means there's better coordination between you and your cousins who are of the same age, as compared to like peers who might not know you well and who might always be in a competitive sense of like affiliation with you. What I'm trying to say then is that I have really given a lot of dimensions for the same argument as to why the child doesn't want to be alone, and how child being alone can be harmful, and how not being alone can really help, and why loneliness is a problem. Now, I have explored this argument from so many angles. And how do you explore or analyze an argument? First of all, understand this. To analyze an argument, okay, let me just start here. Any argument consists of three things, okay? As long as you're able to fulfill those three things and do justice to them, this means you have a good argument. You don't have to speak any further than that, which means that you can, I mean, there is no end to any argument. So if you all know about research papers, when we grow up and when we're at university level, we start writing research papers, and research papers are written on the smallest of things, right? Like a very minute small thing which you think does not need a lot of explanation will have 60 pages long research papers on them. What am I trying to say then? That any argument can be stretched for endless amount of time. but that's not what you want to do, right? So you don't want to keep thinking that, oh, I'm explaining this one argument well, because there is no end to it. There's no end to that kind of a process. So you want to limit yourself to a set time in which you have to finish this argument, because that way you will know how much time I can take, but also deliver a good argument within that time. Now I'm going to give you a structure which you could use to make an argument, and which will help you make a complete argument and not an incomplete argument, and then you will know how to complete an argument within a minute, right? For example, let's now discuss the structure first. So the structure is this. For any argument, you can write this down if you think you are going to forget it after the class. For any argument, the first thing is the claim. Okay, claim. The second thing is analysis, and the third thing is your example. Cool. So what is an argument? An argument is not just my opinion. Do you understand? What do you think is an opinion? Okay, lower your hands, everybody, first. Everybody lower your hands. Suchismita, okay. Now raise your hands for whoever wants to reply to this question. What is an opinion according to you? Okay, Suchismita, what is your response to that?
Ma'am, I think opinion is an idea.
Okay, is an idea, but is it okay? Let's stick to idea. Okay, fair point. Ishan, what is an opinion?
My opinion is a view.
Okay, good. Yes, it's a view. Whose view? I mean, can it be a biased view? Do you
Ma'am,
think?
it's a view of mine about something.
Okay, good. So do you all agree? Now lower your hands. Okay, Ayan, give me your
It
response.
can be biased.
Okay. Ayan?
Describe something in your own words.
Okay. All right. I think all of you are hinting at the same thing and the right thing. So an opinion is not a fact, which means a fact is not a view. It is what it exists for real. What is a fact? It cannot be confuted by somebody, or it cannot be rebutted by somebody. Do you understand? So if I say the sky is blue, you can't possibly go ahead and have a debate on this particular topic that the sky is blue. Why can't we have that debate? Because everybody knows that the sky is blue. Nobody will debate that, oh, the sky is pink, right? But if you have some other issue, for example, I think children should not be alone, then it becomes a view, it becomes an opinion, because it is not obvious that a child should not be alone. Maybe other people think that a child can be alone, right? And that they grow better when they're alone. Do you understand? But in my opinion, a child should not be alone, which means that an opinion is different from a fact. What are facts? Facts are views which cannot be rebutted, which you cannot go against, because these are facts. These are set in stone.
They have proof in it.
They have truth in it. Can you give me some examples of can you give me some facts in
The
general?
earth revolves around the sun.
Okay,
The sun rises in the east.
perfect.
The mouse's heart beats more than 100 times a minute. It
Okay.
sounds like humming.
Oh, all right. So I didn't know about that, but if it is true scientifically, then yes, it's a fact.
The tallest building in the world is the Burj Khalifa.
Okay, so now you understand what facts are. Good. Now, can you give me some examples of what opinions are? Like
Ignorance
some
is
opinions.
Ice cream.
ignorance is bliss.
Football is better than basketball.
Okay, both of them make sense. Ignorance and food.
An opinion is a debatable topic.
Okay, good. Give me an example. Rishika?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, like opinion is a view or a judgment from the person who is speaking about it. So we can say that cricket is better than football, or something which is my opinion.
Right. Okay. Find other examples other than sports.
I
Yeah.
like ice cream.
No, not all of us are going to speak at the same time.
Ma'am,
No.
that teachers should actually grade students. Like students, teachers grade students, sorry.
Okay. Okay. I don't entirely understand, but yeah.
And Saturday should be a holiday.
Okay, good.
Like
Delhi is better than
Okay, wait. Everybody stop. Everybody pin drop silence. I want you to just raise your hands. Don't unmute yourself. I will pick people. Okay, Naisha, followed by Kavya, followed by Trina.
Space exploration is a waste.
Good. Kavya?
Yes, ma'am. Having a good knowledge on a particular subject is better than scoring good marks in a subject.
Good. Trina?
Miss, that Google is making us less intelligent.
All right. I mean, there might be some scientific research which actually proves that, but if it doesn't, yes, maybe. Bhanvi?
Dell is better than HP.
Okay, perfect. Ahana?
Online school is better than offline school.
Great. Are we coming back to the same people who've already spoken over again? Okay, enough of the responses now. I think I've engaged with everybody at least once. Is there anybody who I haven't recognized? Arihant, I think. Arihant, you can give me your understanding of an opinion.
It is a thing that which we make that it is better than it by our choice.
All right, everybody lower your hands now. So all of us understand now what is a fact and how a fact is different from an opinion. So now an opinion, in this case, what am I trying to explain at the end of the day then? Don't forget this, okay? We are trying to understand how I am going to create an argument when I am writing my speech for ideal qualifiers. So in the argument, the first thing that you have to find is a claim. Do you understand? What is a claim then? A claim is what we just discussed in the form of an opinion. Okay. So when you go ahead and say that offline school is better than online school or vice versa, it's a claim. Claim meaning I say this. Why do I say this? I don't know. I'm just saying this. So other people might or might not believe you, but there is no compulsion for them to believe you because you are not giving them any reason for why they should believe you. And what you're saying is not a fact also. So there is no truth to the claim. Do you all understand? There is no truth to the claim as such. But if you want to win the debate, then your claim has to have some truth. Do you agree with this?
Yes, sir.
So does a claim have any truth value?
No.
Can everybody tell me, give me a unanimous answer?
In the arguments, we should give some facts as proof so that we should give some facts as proof.
Okay, Ahana, smart. Yes, that's what I'm trying to get at. But right now, everybody understand that claim has no value, right? So how do we make our claim stand? Because I have to make a claim. I can't win a debate without a claim. For example, Ishan made a lot of claims in his debate, in his arguments, right? The ones we asked for initially at the outset. So he said oneness is important. He said somebody else said, Anaga said sharing is important, and that selflessness is important, and that child should not be alone. All of these are claims. These are not facts, right? And you always debate about things that are not facts, which means there is always going to be something that we say which does not have a truth value, which means establishing a truth value is what makes a good debater. Whoever is able to establish a good truth value is going to win the debate. Do you understand? If I make my claim believable for the judges, I will win the debate. For example, if I'm able to prove that a child should not be alone, whereas a person from the opposition is trying to say that no child should be alone, then if I am able to prove better that not being alone is better than being alone, then who takes the debate?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, why that we not give opinion and jam like truthfully in every debate?
Sorry, what? I didn't understand the question. Can you repeat?
Ma'am, that why we give truth in every debate and came for it and an opinion for it.
Okay, so let me tell you this. We never debate on facts because facts cannot be debated. I mean, all of us cannot debate that we don't live on Earth, we live on Mars, because everybody knows that we live on Earth. There is no question about that. There is no one who will go against you when you say that we live on Earth. Everybody will agree. So when there is no opponent, there is no debate, right? That's why we don't debate facts. What do we debate then? We debate opinions because opinions can differ, right? I think BJP should be the party the ruling party in country, but somebody else thinks that Congress had a better government, right? And somebody else might think that no, Aam Aadmi Party should give like Aam Aadmi Party should give a prime minister candidate. Now these are all opinions based on which we take our decisions, right? I vote according to my opinion, right? I don't vote according to a fact. That's why opinions are also more important in a society, because these determine what people are going to do, and what people do determines how the society is going to be. If I vote for Modi, then I'm also making an impact in the society, because when I vote for Modi will come into power if a lot of other people also vote for him, which means we shape the society through opinions. Do you all understand the importance of opinions now? So if we shape the society through opinions, then opinions become very important, and that's why opinions are what we debate about. Then the idea about a claim. So first I make a claim in any argument. So if I want to say that joint families are better than nuclear families, I will make a claim, which is a child should not be alone, and in a joint family they get company. So that's why we want joint families. Now, this is my claim. I have not given any analysis. And Ishan, this is where I want you to also focus, and Anaga also to focus, whoever gave the responses for why they support the motion, because all of you had great points, but none of you analyzed them, right? So I don't want you to analyze it right now, but in your speeches, you have to. For example, if I say that a child should not be alone, I also have to tell you why the child should not be alone. Because without that, the judges will not let you win the debate. So once I have said that, oh, a child should not be alone, in my analysis, which is the second part of the same argument, I will explain why. The whys, the whats, and the hows of the claim. Now, keep in mind this. When I say something, I have to explain in the analysis why I said that. I have to explain what is it that I'm saying. What is loneliness? First, talk about that. Then explain why loneliness is bad for a child, right? And then explain how loneliness is going to how loneliness is going to go away if there are joint families in which these people live. Do you all understand what analysis is made up of? It's made up of what, why, and how. I will just take questions. I will just complete this third part as well and then take questions. Now when I have explained what my claim is, and when I have analyzed the claim, I will want to give examples, right? Now, what is my example going to be? I could say, example doesn't always have to be statistics. Like Ahana, you were saying this, right? That you have to give some facts. Maybe you don't have to give statistics. There's not always statistics for everything. For example, I don't think there is enough statistics for you to prove that joint families are better. It's a matter of personal preference also, right? So Ahana might like joint families, I don't like joint families. So things that are based on preferences also do not have a lot of objective data for them or stats. So in that case, you can also give a hypothetical example. Do you all understand what is hypothetical, or do I need to explain?
Explain, please.
Yes, I will. I understand. Hypothetical might be a tough concept for now. Hypothetical is just basically something that does not exist. So you are giving an example which does not exist, but which might exist. What does this mean? For example, I know most of the people in Indian society live in joint families. Let's say that's true. So I will say, for example, I can give an example saying that person A who lives in India is likely to feel alone in the society. In the schools, because schools have a lot of competition. So when they come back home, they don't want to come back to an empty home. They want to come back to a home full of people wherein they will feel valued and heard, and where people will listen to them and give them good advice. Which means that I have not given the example of a very successful person in India, right? I haven't said that, oh, APJ Abdul Kalam had a joint family, that's why joint families are good. I haven't said that, oh, some other person, for example, some other famous person, the person who's been able to be successful in their lives had a joint family. That's why everybody should have a joint family. In fact, what I'm saying is that I'm saying person A. So I'm using a situation which doesn't actually exist, which doesn't refer to a real life person, but which could be true, right? For example, most of the people don't want to be alone, right? So you can say person A, for so and so reasons, doesn't want to be alone. We are solving the problem for this person in our paradigm. Do you understand? So examples don't always have to be statistics. They can also be examples in terms of you giving a reasoning that has some logic. For example, who likes to be alone? Nobody likes to be alone, right? Everybody wants company. So you can build an argument around that. You can say that loneliness leads to a lot of mental health issues, because I don't have anybody to seek advice from. I don't have anybody to take me to the movies as a child. As a child, I'm also dependent, which means I don't have a lot. I mean, I can't do a lot of the things by myself because I'm not grown. I'm not 18. I'm not allowed to be alone in public spaces, which means being alone is a lot of pressure on me because I am dependent right now, which means I also need people for my material needs, not just my emotional needs, right? So this is what analysis is made up of. This is what examples are made up of. So I gave an example of a person who could be any person. It doesn't have to be a name, okay? It doesn't have to be some famous personality. I could say person A, consider child A who lives in India, who wants to go to the movies on the weekends, but because their parents had to do overtime at office, they weren't able to take them to the movies. We think the child will not be able to go to the movies for the entire weekend, and then they will have to, and they will feel sad because their friends could go and they could not, which leads to peer pressure and mental health issues. So what am I doing here? I'm giving an example, but I am not giving an example of something that actually exists, or I'm not giving an example of using some figures. For example, 40% of the people feel alone. No, I'm just simply stating what could be happen, and I'm telling you why that thing that happens is wrong and should not happen. Do you understand? And the nature of examples that you could use.
Ma'am, is it okay if we start with anecdotes and quotes in the
It is
beginning?
okay if you start with anecdotes, but your entire speech should not be only about anecdotes and quotes. It should also be some logic and reasoning.
Okay.
Ma'am, in the starting, you have made a slide, and in that slide, we had seen that the speech of minimum 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But ma'am, right now, when we explain all the topics, so ma'am, it was being made of half an hour.
Yeah, but right now I'm trying to explain something, right? I'm trying to explain through 1,000 examples. But when you deliver a speech, you just can use just one example, because then you will be able to understand. Right now we are having a discussion, so the discussion will go on for an hour, but that doesn't mean the speech should also be that long. I am trying to make you understand things, so I'm trying to look at it from different perspectives. You don't have to do that. You can only stick to one example and not give 1,000 examples. Do you understand? That's how the time frame gets adjusted. Anika, is there a question?
Yes, ma'am. My doubt is about the example. And so, in the example, is it necessary that we cannot include a real life example?
No, it's not. In fact, it's better. In fact, it's better if you think you know a real life person who comes from a joint family and really appreciates a joint family. For example, if there was some prime minister of India who really valued joint families and said that, oh, if it wasn't for a joint family, I wouldn't have become the person I am, then you can definitely quote their example, right? But the problem with those kinds of examples can also be that somebody else will say that, oh, Obama, having been raised in America, or any other American president for that matter, also became successful, although their form of understanding of family is never joint families. It's always nuclear family. It's always moving out of your house the moment you turn 18, which a parental house, I'm sorry. So in that case, there could be a lot of rebuttal in that form. So if you're saying that, oh, just because that person did it, you should also do it, that's not a good example. A good example is where you try to give reasoning also. That's why I am more in favor of hypothetical examples, but you can also give a real life example and then try to analyze it in your own way. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, one more thing that I want to say, got reminded of this through Anaga's example. You don't just want to, okay, so a lot of the times this is what we do in debates. We say that, look, because Narendra Modi is the prime minister of our country, and because he does something, we should also do it. Right now, it's okay for you to say that somebody who is famous did something, so we should also gain inspiration from them. But it's not enough for you to say that just because somebody else who is famous did it, we should also do it. Because different people have different preferences, different people have different abilities, which means that just because something happens already doesn't mean it has to happen again. Which means you can't just say that, oh, I think joint families are good because our prime minister says joint families are good. I mean, the prime minister could also be sometimes wrong, right? I mean, anybody can be wrong insofar as we are all humans and we have the ability to make mistakes. So you can't just say that just because somebody does something, we should also do it. You also have to give me analysis. You also have to give me the logic for why we should do it. How does that logic come about? You go ahead and say that either we live in joint families, or if we don't, then we have a very lonely world for the children. So then I am able to understand your point better, because you are saying that in the absence of a joint family, that person feels alone. So now there is reasoning, there is no assertion, there is no claim that, oh, just because somebody else says that we should live in joint families, we're living in joint families. We just don't want to listen to famous people just because they say something. We want to find the logic in it, right? And in debates also that holds relevant. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now another thing. So this is how you should make arguments. Okay, so you can write it down: claim, analysis, and example. If you have all of these three things, for example, your claim will take 10 seconds. It's a very short line. That's what claim is. You don't have to explain it. You just have to make a claim. That is maximum 10 seconds if you're a slow speaker. And analysis, how much time should analysis take? I think around 40 seconds for analysis, right? And then example can be 20 seconds long, which means, no, not 20 seconds long, but yeah, something on the, you can adjust this like 30 seconds for analysis and 20 seconds for example, or how whatever your speed is. I mean, that will differ, but you understand, right? It's easy for you to do this in a minute. It's very easy for you to do this in a minute. So like, for if you think your claim, so make the claim as soon as possible, because claim has no value. You just have to mention it, which can be even 5 seconds. Saying one sentence doesn't take a lot of time. Analysis is very important. Give it the maximum amount of time, because the more you analyze, the better your the better your argumentation gets, and the truth value increases of your claim. And then the example is also nice, but if you cannot give examples in some situations because you ran out of time, then skip the example. Because if the analysis is good, then maybe you don't even need an example, but you can't skip analysis. So if you have to skip something, let it be the example. But if you, I mean, it is always great if you don't have to skip anything. Do you understand? Is it clear? Give me a thumbs up if it is. Okay. Not many thumbs up.
Yes.
Ma'am, so if we don't have
We have to analyze more.
ma'am, so if we don't have a number or a statistical example, can we use anecdotes as examples?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. That's what I'm saying. But you can't say, oh, this happened to me, so it will happen to everybody else as well. No, that is not anecdotes. Anecdotes in the sense that you think more. Okay, so how do you give anecdotes? Now, you don't give personal anecdotes, right? For example, you can't say, oh, my mother is good to me, which means everybody's mother is good to them. Because maybe your mother is a little bit better than everybody else's mother, right? So you can't give those kinds of examples, because what applies to you only applies to you. But in anecdotal examples, what you can do is that you can think about what happens to the majority of the people, right? So, for example, majority of the people in a country live in joint families. Let's say that was a truth. I mean, that was the truth. I mean, I don't know if it is. I don't think that's true now, because we are moving towards nuclear families only. But if that was true, then I can give an example based on that. That most of the Indian students are taught to respect their elders and love their or love the younger ones in the family, which means we have the same value system or some such thing. So now your anecdote is based on what most of the people do and not just your life, right? So you have to talk about what most of the people do. You can't just say that, oh, because it happens to one person, it will also happen to a lot of other people. But you can definitely say that because it happens to most of the people, it is a relevant example, because we are talking about the majority here, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now, in the main speech that you have, okay, Ishan, is there a question?
Ma'am, I reframed my first argument. Can I please speak it and you check it?
Yes, please. Okay, let's try this out. Are you trying to give me a claim analysis example put together?
Yes, ma'am.
Good, good. Okay, let's try this out.
In a joint family, a child is never alone. Loneliness is a feeling of being left out. When a child comes out back to a lonely home, he feels sad, which affects his mental wellness. But in a joint family, when parents are busy and are not available, then grandparents, uncles,
That
and
work I did yesterday
companions.
is in my
One
home.
can
People are explaining it.
one
Okay,
can never
everybody
be
mute
sad because
yourself.
of presence of a big fat family. When my grandparents are with us in summer vacations, I am never alone or sad. I always have a companion to play with.
Okay, good. I think I see some good points in there, such as in your analysis, you make a claim, good. Then in your analysis, you tell me the what, which means what is loneliness, good. You also tell me, but you missed one thing, which is why is loneliness bad? So you say people feel sad, but why do they feel sad when they're lonely? I mean, I could say that I don't feel sad when I'm lonely. In fact, I feel better, right? So you have to explain why loneliness leads to sadness. Do you understand? Because somebody else can say that loneliness does not lead to sadness. Does that make sense, Ishan?
Yes, ma'am.
So you can try. I mean, it's good. This is good argumentation. But if you want to get better and if you want feedback, that's why I'm telling you. So, like, if you want to go ahead and say also, so this is how you should do it, though. I mean, you were on the right track. You make a claim, then you go to the analysis. What are you supposed to include in the analysis? What is loneliness? Why is loneliness?
Why?
Why is loneliness bad? Why does it lead to sadness? Because some people think that loneliness is better, right? So you have to make sure that that does not stand. So you will say loneliness is bad because children are dependent. For example, this is one instance of how you can prove it. That maybe to the adults, loneliness is not bad, but adults are independent, which means I can be alone and watch a movie in the theaters alone. But a child cannot do it, which means loneliness for a child is problematic. For adults, maybe it's okay, right? And then you can go ahead. So once I have told you why loneliness is bad, I can talk about how loneliness will be solved through joint families. Now this is a proper complete analysis of your argument, right? And then the example, Ishan, another point that I was hinting at. So the example that you give about yourself, although I understand where you come from and your example makes sense, that when you go meet your grandparents during vacations, etc., you feel better, you feel good by meeting new people. But you have to explain, you don't have to, you can't give an example of yourself, right? That's what I was telling Ahana as well. Ahana as well, yes. Because when you give your own example, somebody else can say that, oh, you feel good meeting your grandparents, but I don't. Then it's your example against their example, right? You have to give the example of people in general. Say that when you meet new people, for example, if person A has been studying for 8 9 months, and now they get their summer vacation, they feel good because now there is a break from routine, right? So when I meet new people, when I go to a different setting to meet my extended family, I automatically feel better. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
But good effort.
Thank you, ma'am.
Excuse me, mom.
Yes, please.
Yes, mom. To add to Ishan's point, like he said that people get lonely, but what if the opposition says that there are people there are introverts and ambiverts, and then how do we rebut that argument?
Yes. Okay. There are introverts and ambiverts. So that's what I'm saying, right? There could be both. I mean, there are two sides to the coin, which means you have to make your side win. So if they say that, oh, there are introverts and extroverts, you know that it is true, right? You can't say that, no, there are only extroverted people in the world, because that's false. But what you can say is that this concept of introverts and extroverts maybe develops when you grow older. But as a child, you always want people around because you are dependent. Then your argument about dependence becomes very important. Do you understand? Because then you are able to prove that a child cannot be introverted, because if they are introverted, they're unable to fulfill their needs. If I'm introverted and if I'm alone, I can't communicate my need to go for a picnic with the parents, right? I can't decide on my own how to celebrate my birthday. I can't decide on my own how to spend my weekends. For all of this, I need people around me who will help me coordinate, right? And help me get the resources together, which means the dependence or cannot, I mean, because I'm dependent, I can't be lonely, which is why introverts and extroverts happens in your adult life or in your teenage life, not when you're a child. Does that make sense?
Yes, mom.
All right, then. I think this was the most important part of the session today, the argument formation, and any questions with respect to that. I think we have.
No, mom.
Now, this is about your main speech, okay? So if you have like 3 arguments, then have 3 arguments based on this same structure, claim, analysis, example. In the analysis, the what, the why, and the how of it. What am I saying? Why am I saying this is a problem? How can I solve this problem? What is the problem? Why is this a problem? How can I solve the problem? Write it down if you have to. These 3 questions have to be answered in the form of analysis. Okay. Now, coming on to the reply speeches really quickly, because I see that the senior session is also has also started joining in.
Ma'am, can I just quickly, as I have rephrased it again, can I just quickly speak it?
Okay, so what we can do, Ishan, is that you can put in the chat because we need to do the reply speeches as well, and we have only around like 10 minutes left. So I mean, I'm sure you've already gotten the idea. I've listened to you twice, but if you really still want to get it like checked, you can put it in the chat if that's not too much work for you. Is that okay? Okay, moving on. Now, what are the reply speeches? What are you supposed to do in your reply speech? Basically, just respond to the other side. Okay. So, like if you're the government member, you're responding to the opposition side. And if you're the opposition member, you're responding to the government side. That's pretty obvious. But what isn't obvious is that you don't just go in the reply speech. One common mistake that I think will be made is that a lot of you will just go ahead and say the same point that you said in your first speech again and say that no, my points are still relevant. This is how not how you're supposed to deliver a reply speech. A reply speech is not supposed to be a reiteration or a second delivery of the same speech. A reply speech is supposed to compare. Okay, this is your keyword for now. It's supposed to compare the two sides, which means that if I have talked about only my case and what I think is right in the first speech, in the reply speech I have to talk about two cases, right? Both the cases, which is both government and opposition cases. I can't just talk about myself. I will first talk about what I have said. I will then consider what the other side has said, and then I will find who said the right thing. So I will compare the two arguments, and I will say that my argument still wins because of A, B, C, D reasons. Okay, this is how you try to establish your win in the round through the reply speech, through comparisons. Okay, you want to go ahead and
Excuse
say,
me,
yeah.
ma'am. While in the end of the paragraph number third, we had to say that the argument is win by these reasons.
Yeah, yes. So the reply speech is about telling the panel why you win, despite the other side saying, giving some rebuttals to your points. So, of course, when you're delivering a case, there is going to be some rebuttals, there's going to be some response from the other side, which means by the time the other person has already delivered their first speech, your case has already been threatened by certain responses that come from the other side. Now, you want to make sure that the panel does not buy those arguments from the other side, because if it does, then your arguments will fall from the first speech. So now what you want to do is you want to compare. Well, I said this, and this is how the other side responded to it. But I think I still win. For example, the example that somebody just raised, I think this was Ayan. So when I go ahead and say that, look, joint families are better for people because, I mean, for children, because children are dependent and loneliness becomes difficult for them to deal with. So the opposition, Ayan said might say that there are people who are also introverted, which means they like loneliness. They don't like to be in amidst a lot of people. But then my response to that, so now I can compare these two arguments in my reply as the proposition member. I can go ahead and say that, okay, panel, I went ahead and said that loneliness is bad. Opposition says that loneliness might be preferred, but I think I still take over this particular clash point because I have been able to tell you how children will not prefer loneliness. It's only an adult phenomenon where you start to like loneliness. But because I, as a child, am dependent, and dependence means I have to coordinate for every single need of mine with somebody else. I need people around me to advise, suggest, coordinate, give me the resources I need in order to celebrate my birthday or even like go out for weekends, right? Everything requires support, structural support, because I'm a child, which means introvertedness is not so much of a concept for children. Even if it is, they still need that minimum bare company that they require in order to get things in place for their own selves, which means I compare the two arguments and then I prove why my argument is still the better one. That's how you deliver your reply speeches. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
So from my side, this is pretty much it. I am open to questions for the next 5 minutes and nothing beyond that. So like, if there are any questions, shoot. Ayan.
Ma'am, is this compulsory to start a statement from this house?
Not really. You don't even have to repeat the motion in a speech. I don't prefer that because the judges know what the motion is. Everybody knows the motion. You're just wasting your time if you go ahead and say the motion over again.
Okay, ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am.
No, raise your hand. Anaga?
Yes, ma'am. My doubt is Should we compare both sides, the whole 3 minutes in the reply speech, or should we do it in the last 1 minute and put some of our reasons and points before?
No. So if you do it in the last 1 minute, what are you going to do in the rest of the speech? I think reply is all about seeing what the other side says and then comparing it with your own case. So even if you're able to compare every clash point, what is clash point? Everybody, okay, for example, the child should not be alone. Now somebody prefers loneliness and somebody goes against loneliness, right? So this is a clash because in either way, loneliness is being discussed. So there is some common point, right, where you're meeting. So that becomes a clash. You only compare the clashes in the reply speech. So even if you're able to compare all the clashes and prove why you win those clashes, I think your reply speech would be a good one. You don't have to keep it aside for only the last minute because I don't understand what you're going to do in the initial 2 minutes of your speech then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Arihant followed by Manvi.
So,
Yeah. Okay, Manvi, you can ask me a question. Also, sorry if I'm butchering your name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Like if I'm on the opposition side, so do I need to first in my speech, do I need to define the keywords or it would be defined by the proposition side?
I think proposition will define it, but then because this is not parliamentary format, this is conventional. I think opposition can also go ahead and say what their understanding of the terms is, or if it is in the same as the government, or if it differs a little bit.
So what if the government side did not tell the keywords of the motion? So do I need to tell it if
If
I'm
you think there is a need, then go ahead and do it. For example, in this motion, I don't think it is required so much in a 3 minute long speech because joint families are understood like people where not your immediate family.
okay?
Words require definition. For example, democracy is not self-explanatory. Some people, I mean, democracy has a lot of dimensions. So you might want to define it. But joint families, I don't think has a lot of dimensions, or I don't think there's going to be a lot of conflict on the definitions. So you can skip in such situations.
Okay.
Ahana followed by Kavya, and after that, I will take all the other questions later.
ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, so in the first speech, we can talk about this house believes and if we are for or against the motion, whereas in the reply speech, we don't need to do that. Do we?
No, I didn't understand the question. So in the first speech,
So in the first speech, do we need to talk about this house believes and if we are for or against the motion? Whereas
yeah.
in the reply speech, we don't need to do that, do we?
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't even have to mention you are for or against even in the first speech if you don't want, because you'll be wasting your time. The judge already knows that if you are speaking first, you are the proposition member.
Okay.
Kavya?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, as you said that we have to deliver two speeches. So, ma'am, in the first speech, we said few lines on that topic. Then, ma'am, the opponent says against it. Then, ma'am, after in the second speech, can we say few lines on that point same and then switch it to another point, ma'am?
Yeah, maybe. Okay, maybe, but I don't want you to repeat what you said in the first speech without any value addition to it, which means that your one point that you already mentioned in your first speech does not remain the same point in the second speech because there has been some critical remark to it from the other side, which means now you want to redo that particular point in such a way that it is not easily rebutted as it was in the first speech. You try to add some value to it so that it doesn't so that the rebuttal from the other side does not stand to that argument. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there's a lot of hands raised. I'm sorry, but we are beyond time, which means we are going to pick tomorrow's session up from with these questions. So just write your questions down somewhere, jot them down, and tomorrow I can.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am, can you send the slide?
This slide.
Yes, ma'am, because ma'am, we are not able to do it properly.
I will after the trainings are over. That's the plan, but not right now.
ma'am, approximately how many points do we need to pick up in the reply speech?
Depends. So whichever point you think has been talked about by both the sides, those are clashes which you need to talk about in your speech.
Okay.
Any other questions? No, I can't take any more questions because there's another batch waiting. So I'm going to start the session tomorrow with the questions. So it's not like I'm being unfair to anyone who hasn't had the chance to ask a question. Just like come with these same questions tomorrow, and I'll pick it up from there. Is that okay?
What will be the
Yes, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you for the class.
You're welcome. There's no question, there's no homework as such, but I need you, if you can, just go ahead and make one argument from against the same motion and do it in the structure that I told you, just like how Ishan tried doing it today in the class. So against the motion, but the same structure that I gave you, okay? I mean, maybe you could use that as homework.
Okay, ma'am.
Cool. See you all tomorrow. Thank you for joining in.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Ma'am, should I leave the meeting or you're only going to disconnect it?
No, there's another batch joining in, so you're free to leave now. Thank you. Hi, here's hoping everybody from the senior category is here and the junior category is left. So if you haven't, please do. I'm going to.
I'm in the senior.
Okay, somebody confused about which category they are in. Okay, I need you all to be on camera, please. I'm not on camera because I'm in Delhi and it's been raining endlessly. I don't know when this is going to stop. But until then, I just can't help my internet. But otherwise, if you have a good internet connection, please don't copy me. Try being on camera.